Hello guys, happy Monday. This is actually Sunday for me, so I just wanted to show you that not much has changed in the classroom since you all left on March 12th. Everything's exactly the same. I had to come in and make copies for your next couple of weeks coming up, so I thought I would do the lesson 16 with you together when you can kind of take a look at the room and kind of reminisce and say, oh, I really do miss school just a little bit, right? Okay. So lesson 16, I'm going to get to in just a second. I just want to make sure you all had a really good spring break. I'm glad you all had some time off. My kiddos, I know, loved having time off because they didn't have to work on their packets like you all are doing too in your work online. So I'm glad that you all had some time to just relax and be kids and have fun. So hopefully you got to go outside some, you were safe, all of those things that everyone's talking about on media. So I'm glad to see you all. I hope you all can. This week, I want to challenge you all to possibly make a video of yourself doing your work or doing something fun and send it in to me. Email it to me, and maybe if I can upload it onto Google Classroom to show your friends what you're doing. Something cool you've learned, something cool you're doing, something like that. That would be cool to put on for our Google Classroom. So we're going to go over a couple things. So for lesson 16, it's on persuasion. And this is the thing we've not talked about yet because this was in our Unit 4 that we were getting ready to do before you all. We had all this craziness going on. So lesson 16 in persuasion is a little bit new, but you should have done a little bit of it last year. So to persuade means to convince someone to think or act in a certain way. Persuasive writing uses a combination of ideas, information, and language in support of a position. Persuasive writing may also try to demonstrate why the opposing position is not correct. In persuasive writing, the author may take advantage of the difference between a word's denotation or exact dictionary definition and its connotation or its implied meaning that readers attach to a word. So denotation starts with a D, so dictionary definition is how I remember it, the actual definition. So it says, for example, the words small and undersized have nearly identical dictionary definitions, but undersized suggests that something is less than it should be. Propaganda is the use of language, ideas, information, and rumors to support one side of an argument and or discredit another. Propaganda may include loaded language or words chosen to provoke a positive or negative response. For example, the phrase, a group of children sitting in the park, creates a very different response than a gang of hooligans loitering in the park. So one is very positive or neutral, and the second one's very negative connotation, okay? Last part, a testimonial is a state of support for a product or an idea that may be made by a famous person. For example, rock legend Eric Clapton says, I use only brand X guitar strings. A bandwagon appeal implies that something is right because everyone else is doing it. For example, all the best athletes eat brand Y cereal. Fill in the blank. You all can, like Wheaties was it for a long time, okay? So, your actual first passage is called the strawberry. So we're going to use all of this information. This is your information part on getting the idea, all your background, all your help. And it's going to help with your actual two passages, okay? So passage 1 is the strawberry. So there are hundreds of fruits that people eat. Fortunately, only one can claim the title of the world's favorite fruit. That fruit, of course, is the strawberry. The strawberry standing is no surprise. After all, the strawberry has one of the highest concentrations of sugar of any food. That sugar is what gives the strawberry its delicious taste. In a recent poll, over 75% of the 10,000 people surveyed chose the strawberry over second-rate fruits as the banana, cherry, and the grape. Okay, so it's comparing contrast. They said they did a poll, but we don't know how true that poll is. So think about all those things as you read that passage. Okay, so let's do the think it through. These are the two practice questions, smaller passage. So number 1 says, what is the author trying to persuade readers to believe in this passage? Obviously about the strawberry. So we don't even talk about the banana. We do at the very end, but that doesn't count. A strawberry has a great deal of sugar. Are we talking about sugar specifically? No. C, the strawberry is the best fruit in the world. There's your loaded word, best. Or D, sugar is what makes strawberries taste good. So the only one that makes sense with this question in this actual passage would be C, the strawberry is the best fruit in the world. Okay, it's persuasive. Okay, it's trying to convince you of something. Okay, 2, what technique does the author use to persuade the readers? The author uses testimonial. Remember, testimonial means that there's actually a famous person that says that. Do we have a famous person in this one? Not really, no. B, the author uses bandwagon appeal. Bandwagon means that most people are doing it. It's right because everyone's doing it, so that may be it. C, the author uses snob appeal. Is snob appeal even a choice? If you look back here, nope, not even a choice, so that's definitely wrong. Or D, the author appeals to the reader's logic. Well, there's really no logic in it. It talks about how it's so sweet, okay? It doesn't talk about being smart. So the only one that actually makes sense is bandwagon, because it says 75% of 10,000 people agree it's the best choice, yada, 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 okay? So double check your answers. Make sure they're right. Make sure they're circled. And then go ahead and flip to the second. Oops, don't go to 17, just go to 16. The second passage, okay? It's called Down with Dress Code. Down with dress codes, sorry. And don't forget to do the reading guide questions. When I made these copies the last time for when you start day 20, I have underlined a big arrow. It says don't forget. I did not do these on the last ones because I hadn't graded your papers yet. And a lot of you have forgotten these, even those of you that had paper copies. So I'm going to give you an option to add to your points that keep updated, keep checking in on, because I'm going to figure out what to do to add to your points for those who cannot go back and redo unless we go back to school later. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that too. Okay. Down with dress code. There is a problem at many of the fine restaurants in our city. The problem has nothing to do with their food or their service. Rather, the problem is related to the dress code enforced by these establishments. It is, of course, normal for restaurants to ask their customers to dress neatly. Showing up at La Mansion, a 5-star restaurant on Pine Street, in ripped jeans and a tank top is certainly inappropriate. Yet what about arriving at La Mansion in a pair of freshly pressed slacks and a collared shirt? This attire is good enough for most businesses in our city. So why isn't it good enough for La Mansion and other expensive restaurants? Okay. So we're looking at the first question. How does this evidence support the author's argument? First of all, if you look, the argument is obviously about dress code. That's in the title. And it talks about how it doesn't have to be as fancy as some are saying it has to be. So think about that as we go. We'll come back to these questions here because I want to get the point across for this. Okay, so expensive restaurant dress code. Okay, paragraph 3. Requiring diners to wear a jacket and tie is an old-fashioned tradition. Indeed, it should be left in the past. Such dress codes are unfair and inconvenient. Some people do not own suits and ties. Others simply do not usually dress so formally. Both of these groups must do more than just pay for a meal if they wish to eat at La Mansion and other fine restaurants. They must change their routine or pay for, quote, appropriate clothing. This is unacceptable. After all, these restaurants are not private clubs. There is one solution to this problem. Restaurants must modernize and relax their old-fashioned dress code. One restaurant, Baxter, has already updated its dress code, and it is twice as busy as it was before. Other establishments should follow the example of Baxter. Okay, so we've got our persuasive language. They should do this. It's unfair and inconvenient for them to have it that way. So let's look back at your reading guide questions. It says, how does this evidence support the author's argument? Okay, so the evidence is, obviously, it's old-fashioned, it's out of date, and it even goes on the later, it's another question, well, later part that talks about how they're actually losing money because people can't afford to do it. 2, how might the writer use a bandwagon appeal in this paragraph? So how are they going to say everyone else is going to, and you could probably put something like places that don't require a strict dress code. It talks about in this specific paragraph, paragraph 3. So it does talk about it in paragraph 4, but what can you add something here? And there is not one right answer. So whatever you put here, just make sure it is a bandwagon appeal where everyone else is doing it. So you give your example, be creative. And then the last question, is this passage intended to be persuasive or informative? We've already talked about it. Definitely persuasive. It has a lot of loaded language, and they obviously don't want to have a dress code. Okay, so persuasive. Okay, now your 4 questions. Number 1, the author's main argument in the passage is, okay, it actually gives you it in the first paragraph, okay? So we don't want to say it's overpriced and overrated, but it does specifically talk about dress code, okay? So between B and C, B says dress codes are inconvenient and old-fashioned, or C, dress code should be more strictly, which that's not even the right word. More strictly enforced. I'm sorry, I missed a word there. More strictly enforced. So we obviously see that it should be less strictly enforced. So C would not be right. So B would be the only correct answer based on these 4 choices. Okay? 2, what evidence does the author use to support his argument? Okay, obviously there's a lot of evidence that supports. He insists some people do not own suits and ties. He does say that. He says wearing tank top and ripped jeans is inappropriate. He does, but does that support his argument? No. That he says it, but that's not to support that it should be worn. Okay, C, he suggests that there's a problem in the city. Well, he does, but is that evidence to support? No. He says the problem has nothing to do with food. Right, but going further, the only one that actually gives evidence to support his argument would be A, because it gives examples. It says some people do not own suits and ties. Okay, so 1 was B, 2 was A. Double check yours, please. 3, by arguing that the restaurants are not private clubs and therefore have no right to impose strict dress codes on customers, the author is making an appeal to the reader's memories, emotion, sense of humor, or logic. Okay, so this actually makes pretty good sense. Okay, so it's making sense like, well, it's not a private club, you're right. And we shouldn't have to do that. You're right. It's not meant to be funny. It's not meant to make you cry. It's not meant to be nostalgic and look back. So it's saying you're right. Yeah, it's logic. Okay? So definitely logic. And then 4, if a writer wanted to use a testimonial to support his argument, he would provide readers with a host of statistics, percentages, and polls. No, that would not be testimonial. Repeat his point several times. That's repetition. Include a personal experience. Or stick to entirely to unbiased facts. Well, testimonial means that a person's giving their personal experience. So if you know the definition of testimonial, C is the only correct choice for that. Okay? So please go back and double check. If you need to go back and watch the video again, please do that. And I hope you saw all that because the camera clicked off on low battery. So I'll have to go back and check. But please email me with questions, concerns, comments, and please watch these videos. Go back and watch the first 2. Make sure you go back and double check your answers. You should have 100% for 4th 9 weeks because you should have all the opportunity to go back and fix and make corrections. So have a great day. Email if you need to. And thank you for watching.